This is Kyle Gullings from Tyler, Texas. I'm here to talk about Week 3, The Mixer, for the Coursera course, Introduction to Music Production. Today I'm going to be discussing 3 categories of audio effects, the properties of sound that each of them impact, and different examples of each of those effect types. So the first category is dynamic effects, the second is delay effects, and lastly, filter effects. Let's look first at dynamic effects. I'm going to be demonstrating each of these with the tracks you see here on the screen. I've got my acoustic ukulele recording plus some instrument tracks of the bass guitar and drums, both of which have some MIDI information. When I demonstrate these effects, I'm just going to use the drum track alone so you can isolate and hear what each of the effects does to the sound. So first, let's hear everything all together. Now just the drum track. So let's look at each of these different types of effects. The first is dynamic effects, which affects the amplitude of sound. Some examples are compressors, limiters, expanders, and gates. You can see with my drum track here, I've got a compressor limiter, and what this is going to do is when the volume gets too loud at a certain point, it will reduce the gain, or reduce the amount, the amplitude. So let's take a listen, and partway through, you can see bypass is on, so it's not affecting the track right now. Partway through the playing, I'll go ahead and hit bypass off to make the effect turn on. Let's take a listen. That really drops the gain when it gets a little too loud on some of those bass drum hits. The next category of effects is delay effects, and delay effects affect the propagation of the signal. It delays the signal to emulate a space that you're inside or give the illusion of a three-dimensional environment. Some examples of delay type effects are reverbs, delays, phasers, flangers, and choruses. You can see that I've got a reverb unit as an insert here, and so I'll go ahead and play this one and turn off the bypass to turn on the reverb partway through this track. Okay, that does definitely give it a sense of space and three-dimensionality. And lastly, I will demonstrate filter effects. So filter effects, unlike dynamic effects that affect amplitude and delay effects that affect propagation, filter effects affect the timbre or sound quality of your signal. It does this by adjusting the relative mix of upper partials or overtones within a particular frequency or frequency range. And some examples of filter effects include high, low, and band pass filters, and parametric and graphic equalizers. Here we'll take a look at my EQ that I've got added to the drums, and partway through the track I'll turn off bypass and you can hear what EQ is doing. In this case, you can see ahead of time, because this is graphic, that the low end has been rolled off a little bit to back down on those really heavy bass kind of frequencies so that it doesn't get too loud to get in the way of the ukulele that I'll put back in later. Let's take a listen. So just a little bit of a change there, less bass. Now with all of these effects put back on and the bypass turned off for that, as well as the bass guitar and the ukulele, we can really get the sense that this is not strictly something straight out of a box, but rather sounds a little bit more like a realistic recording and more well balanced. Let's take a listen to the entire track. All right, and those are your 3 different types of effects: the dynamic, delay, and filter effects. Thanks for listening, and I appreciate your comments.